Yes, hello, and welcome to Release the Creative, your favorite show about cognition, creativity, and this week, are you afraid of the dark?
Halloween is over.
I know that, but it's Christmas. It's the scariest time of the year.
That's true, I guess.
I hate Christmas with all that I am. Yes, bah humbug. But I worked really hard to try to figure out something to call this one that was more Yuletide. But like, other than going Krampus, which not enough people would get on the face of it, there's nothing really scary about, I guess I could say, The Nightmare Before Christmas, but that feels a little bit like too on the nose.
I don't know. I mean, it works.
I guess we are talking about nightmares. And this is... Okay, so fine. Yes, hello, and welcome to Release the Creative. And this week... Yeah, we're just going to go for it. Nightmare Before Christmas.
Nightmare Before Christmas, it is.
Leave all of that in, by the way. No outtakes. That's kickoff gold right there. Fear is weird. And that's more or less the thesis of today's entire episode, that fear is really strange. And let's start off with that.
Okay.
Because things like, there's a dog attacking me, that's not fear as much as instinct. If you really think about what, something's flying at your face, you're not afraid of it. You flinch. That's reactionary. Things that can actually harm you, you typically aren't afraid of. You
react to
them.
You
react to. That is a completely separate part of the brain. That is immediate danger, flinch, guard, fight, flight, freeze. Like, that is a reaction part of the brain. Fear, however, is for the most part completely unrelated to that, which is why so many of the things that we are afraid of make absolutely no sense. For example, the original title of this episode, Are You Afraid of the Dark? The dark has in the history of mankind never killed anyone. I'm not talking to you Doctor Who fans. Stay in your lane. The dark... Vashta Narada, Paradas of the Air.
Well, that wasn't even the dark. There was
the Vashta Narada. That was the Vashta Narada. Exactly. Why are we afraid of the dark? Why am I, who is not allergic to bees, mortally terrified of them?
Bees are cute.
Yeah, I mean, psycho killers walking around with sabers are cute too, but
Yeah, wasps are terrible.
True. I also have an inability to distinguish between honeybees, bumblebees, wasps, yellow jackets. I mean, like, visually I can tell. It's not like I can't see the difference. It's that I just am convinced that bees are just like bees in yellow jacket like armor. Like, they're all the same thing. They're like they're all in the same team. They wear the same colors. They're members of the same gang.
Yeah. Well, so fear is more over the Thanksgiving break. I was sleeping in the basement for logistical reasons, and it's very nice in the basement. And
it is. I've slept in your basement for months.
Same sofa, and we have I brought a sleeping bag down there to put on the sofa. It was wonderful.
Sure.
And everybody else went to bed at like 11 o'clock. I went downstairs and I was just enjoying hanging out. I was playing on my phone. I went and got a midnight snack, came back, and everything was great. And then around 1 a.m, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the bathroom, come back. And that's when I realized, all right, everyone else is 2 stories up. There's a window here that looks out to the woods. Mm-hmm. Any random creature / alien / monster could be like approaching the window.
Sure.
Right?
And you wouldn't know.
And so I got my phone out and I put on the light and looked out the back and like a pile of trash bags to go out the next day. And, no monsters yet, but I closed the curtain and laid down and I was like, all right, I'm not so happy in the basement anymore. So
I would like to point out that I would mock you mercilessly, but I lived in your basement for like 6 months, and I am remarkably familiar with that exact set of feels.
Like pre-midnight and post-midnight are different things.
You're just like, I'm on this couch, and I can't see through that window because the lights are on in here, and there's a forest right there. There could be a psycho killer in this upper middle-class suburban neighborhood.
It doesn't help that... I've seen wildlife on my back porch and it's like, okay, raccoon probably not going to kill me, but we're moving up the food chain at that point.
At least they have a fighting chance. No, and it's really strange because, again, when you are, if you're out on if I was on the African safari, not safari, the Savannah, thank you. If I'm out there and a lion starts attacking me, I am not afraid of the lion at that point. It's not like, ooh, I'm worried. No. That is fear. It is at that point, it's a visceral, deep response.
Fear is when you hear the lion but haven't seen it yet.
Right. Now that one actually makes sense though. But fear is so strange because we have a lot of fears that make some sense. Like Nope, can't actually think of any.
Fear of chocolate and milk.
That's probably a thing. But like triskaidekaphobia, I'm afraid of the number 13. Fear of clowns, which I'm sure has a name.
That one's pretty logical.
It really isn't, though, but okay. Or my favorite word in the English language, hippopotamonstrosesquipedalophobia, or the irrational fear of large words. Which just gives me so much joy to say because it took me a long time to learn how to say it. It breaks down to, anyway. Why are we afraid of the dark? Why are we afraid of heights? Why are we afraid of bees and snakes? Snakes are basically harmless in the United States. If you're from Africa or India where there are cobras and other pit vipers and things, this is a very different conversation. But for a good old Ohio-born white-bread American, snakes are basically harmless. A rattlesnake could kill you in really specific conditions, but most likely you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Why are we so viscerally terrified of snakes? Is it a propaganda? Is it a PR move on the part of the lizard? Don't trust them. They have no legs.
I just anything that can bite your ankles is kind of a no-go, I guess.
That's just can't be it, because otherwise we wouldn't have chihuahuas on purpose.
Well, I can't explain chihuahuas
For
either.
the record, I can't explain chihuahua. It's like a furry snake with legs. It's strange. I'm sorry to all of my chihuahua aficionados. I do love dogs, just that's not a dog. No, and so it's really interesting because the answer to all of these is actually that we are running a firmware update from approximately 6 to 10,000 years ago, depending on which anthropological track you run. Mm-hmm. We are biological hardware running firmware from an era that we no longer live in at all. And so our society is smartphones and cameras, but our limbic system is still running where getting attacked by a woolly mammoth was like not completely outside of the realm of possibilities.
Yeah, that's not that far back, honestly.
Actually, no, it really isn't. For those of you who are really interested in this line of discussion, the Real Story of Risk by Dr. Glenn Croston, who is an awesome guy that I interviewed for my book, but also the book Sapiens by, I can't say his name without just butchering it and I'll feel really, really bad. It's Yuval. It's an Israeli name. It's a very, very cool guy. I can't say his name because I just butcher it every time I try, but I'll link in bio. Anyway, but both of them talk about these concepts a lot. We are, as a society, we're running firmware from something we don't understand, from a world that we don't live in. The best single example. Now, anytime you use a single sample to make a point, you're just asking people to tear you apart. Please don't. I'm just using a single sample. There are others. The best example of this is the fear of public speaking. Mm-hmm. Now, Jerry Seinfeld did a quote that I think is really hysterical. He said that 95% of people are afraid of public speaking and 90% of people are afraid of death. So if you go to a funeral, 5% of the people there would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy.
Probably true.
Now, there's no real evidence to back that up, but I did actually, when I was writing my book, I did a bunch of research and found that there are, in fact, studies that back up those numbers loosely with caveats here and there. But it's interesting. Of all the things, the number one fear, more than snakes, more than spiders, more than heights, more than clowns, more than 13, the number one fear across all races, nations, because like a lot of things, like I said, fear of snakes, in some countries to this day, that still makes good sense. Mm-hmm. But everyone everywhere, almost near biologically, is terrified of public speaking. Now, you've known me since I was 14. I'm not afraid of public speaking.
Yeah.
But every time I do it, my heart still races. Now, I get excited by that. I feed off of it, but there is still it's
adrenaline either way. Yeah.
I harness it and ride that wave. Other people use it to run away. But why would public speaking right now to you is no more different than speaking in public, or to speak to something you're more have worked with? The number of times, you used to work with a corporate board, a Fortune 500 company. Actually, I think if it was a Fortune 200 company, if I remember correctly. You worked on this board, and these are well-educated, Ivy League, millionaire men, and you point a camera on them and ask them a question. Walk me through that experience.
You talking about from my perspective?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like your phone voice, though. It's, you know, you have to turn on a different part.
Yeah.
So there's a defense mechanism there, I guess. Because I would say it's easy, but it's not yourself. You can't go in being yourself.
Right. No. I mean, from your perspective of their perspective, why are these brilliant men that have hundreds of thousands of dollars in scholarships on their wall and millions of dollars in their bank, why would they be terrified of you with a black box with a blinking red light on it? Why do these brilliant, educated monsters of industry back away from you like you are a saber-toothed tiger because of a tally light? That's the little red light on the front of a video camera. Yeah,
no, it's weird. It's kind of like... it has to do with your own personal familiarity, I guess, with as I used to work at a large corporation, sure. And sometimes we would videotape executives talking about what their jobs were.
Sure.
You know, like come in and tell us about the quarterly earnings or whatever, you know, and they just, you know, they know their stuff. But a lot of times we would do morale boosting videos where they were supposed to be kind of fun or goofy or, you know, it's like, hey guys, we got to make the sales. And we would do sketches and songs and stuff. And when you took these executives, and I'd seen them speak not only to my camera, but large audiences, and like when they're talking about their business, they have all the confidence in the world. But then when you ask them to like, hey, dance along to this funny song, and it's completely different attitude. It becomes they're afraid of it, you know, and they wouldn't. I don't think they'd use the word fear, but it's a certain
awkward,
amount of
uncomfortable
trepidation.
Yeah.
It's very. And it's like, oh, you're just talking in front of a camera, same as always, but it's different once you're out of your comfort zone.
It really is, and that's actually a really great example, and there's a reason for that. It all comes back down to this very interesting fact, and that is that in the food chain of things, spoiler, this is not true. In the food chain of things, the raccoon that we mentioned on your back porch a minute ago, in a lot of ways, is higher up the food chain than you. I mean, not really. You can hit it with a rock and eat the raccoon. But what natural defenses, if we gave you and the raccoon the same exact advantages, you naked, raccoon naked, out in a Northern Virginia, you know, November, December morning, you're going to die before the raccoon.
I think it was the Calvin and Hobbes comic where Calvin was lamenting. He's like, no fangs, no wings, no claws. And he's like, what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, if you really look, it's like, the raccoon has very sharp claws. It can climb trees like a cat. It can do a lot of things. It can hide. It has unbelievable. It has fur. It has lots of natural instincts and abilities. And if we stripped any normal red-blooded American naked and put them in the woods,
50-50.
50-50. Like, it really depends on how that's going to go. And so
it's not a matter of if you'll lose to the raccoon. It's a matter of how many raccoons does it take. There's a number.
That's true. But yeah, like Calvin and Hobbes said, we don't have claws and we don't have fangs. We have no natural armor. Our skin is actually remarkably soft and uncalloused in most things. We are not a particularly hairy group as a species. There are, of course, group people that are, but you know, we are not set up for life in the wild. But yet, for some reason, we who entered the game late, mankind is not that old in the grand spectrum of biology. How did we go from a blip on the radar to wiping out every single major predator on the planet in like 6,000 to 10,000 years-ish? Again,
I've got one word for you.
Oh no.
Plastics. I know you love a good movie quote.
What movie did you just quote?
The Graduate.
Oh, wow. I really didn't think you were going to know, so I'm glad that you did. I thought Natalie and I were just talking about movies that people quote, but they don't know what movies they were quoting.
That's a long list.
It's a long list of like, oh yeah, it's from a movie. Yes, no, that is in fact from The Graduate. There's a big future in plastics. But it's really fascinating. So what makes us different? What makes us, it clearly isn't our claws, it isn't our, why did we go from nothing to the major predator on Earth in the evolutionary equivalent of a long weekend?
Yeah. Well, I think there's two answers, but they probably go hand in hand.
What are your two?
Which is endurance and like we call it society. We back each other up. We hunt in packs, and
society. Yes. What do you mean by endurance?
This is a true thing. I don't know how this plays into your thing, but where humans started to succeed against other species, like a big cat, like a jaguar or something, a cheetah.
Sure.
A cheetah saves up all its energy.
And you do 300 yards of running.
And it either hits that antelope or it misses it and it's got to wait again. And if it tries too many times, it runs out of energy and it dies. It only has so many shots. And most predators are like that.
Interesting.
Where they only have so much energy. And that's why they sleep all day. They got to conserve their energy. Humans and most animals are like that to some extent. What humans had is that we can just walk all day. Apparently this was a common early man hunting technique, is you'd get a bunch of guys with a bunch of spears and you'd see an elephant and you just walk towards it. And
eventually it would just get tired.
The elephant's like, oh shit, I got to get out of here. And the elephant starts walking and you follow it. And I mean, you're a human being. You could walk across the plains for 5-6 hours. You may need a break for some water.
Have.
But like walking 5 or 6 hours across the savannah sounds like actually an activity we call hiking.
Yeah, that's something. There are people that do that on purpose.
That's something we do for fun. If you make an elephant walk for 6 hours, it's done. That's it. It has no more gas in the tank, and then it lays down and you just stab it to death.
That's interesting.
And so
it does play into what we're talking about, but that is different. That's interesting.
Yeah, just outlasting nature is what like an early human advantage.
So your answer is the answer I was looking for is the second one, but it's actually hidden in the first, and that is that we are not the fastest, because if we were to try to run down the elephant, we'd probably lose that fight.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are the most tactical. We are the only. There are absolutely wolves that hunt in packs, and there are absolutely other animals that coordinate. But what we have found is that they don't have a playbook. They have a move. Like
that's where I think they go hand in hand, is if your tactic is to walk with a group of your peers for 5 hours till something keels over and dies.
Yeah.
You're going to start communicating like that. That's kind of where society probably came from.
Interesting.
Is like, hey, we're all out here taking a hike for 5 hours a day to hunt. Like that's how we hunt. Like it's going to start to create language.
But so here we have this group. We have this group, and they're walking. They're spending time together. We're the most tactical, because sometimes it takes fast movement, and sometimes it takes slow movement, and sometimes it takes hiding in a bush and waiting forever. Mm-hmm. Think about the first guy. You've heard it because you've seen it in a movie at some point. You always want to go be upwind or downwind of the animal. So someone figured that out? They're like, elephant's going to see me coming. So like at some point, someone said, "I'm going to bathe or come from this direction." Yeah. That was we're the group that thought of that. We had the mental capacity to be tactical. Now, how does this get to public speaking? Why is we are a tactical group that'll walk after an elephant all day? Why does that make us afraid of public speaking? Because here's the thing.
We need that group.
One guy walking after an elephant, probably not going to do the same thing. Probably. And even if it does, at the end of that, if you're sitting around the campfire roasting your elephant and you make an off-color joke about something and the chieftain or the group or whatever says, "Okay, away from the fire, you're out." Yeah, you're dead.
Yeah, not a good situation.
It's not a good situation. And there's power in numbers and there's power in the pack, and but we evolutionarily, we require, obviously there are those crazy hermits that have done it, but we truly require that society. We require it to think, we require it to operate, we require it to grow, we require it, it takes a village is really, really true. And banishment, the reason we hear about banishment in the olden days, but we don't, now you can't really banish anyone, they just go, But banishment was death, like in that Batman 3, Batman Rises. Dark Knight Rises. Okay. Dark Knight Rises. He's like, do you choose death or banishment? He goes, I choose death. And he was like, great, death by banishment. Because it was the same thing. Now, obviously, it's a Batman Christopher Nolan movie, but my point remains that you needed the society. So we became truly limbic system, lizard brain, base root, terrified of doing anything that loses our hunting party, that loses the safety of the cave. So you get this guy, this Geico dude. Damn it.
Okay. Right. And so they start with
yeah. Okay. So you get this guy, you get this corporate,
executive,
huge bigwig. And this guy, I mean, he has a house in the Hamptons and a house in South Beach. Like this guy is living large, and he can talk off the cuff, without notes, about financial planning all day long. And if someone disagrees with him, they might disagree, but like he can stand his ground and he knows it. Now ask him to do a limerick wearing a green hat at the St. Patrick's Day festival. And he's like, no. Because even though he's not going to get fired for that, and he's not, of course, not going to get disgraced or kicked, we are hardwired to be afraid of being cast out of the group. I don't know anyone, you're going to say, not me. I don't know anyone who doesn't have that one memory from grade school where they spilled something and everyone laughed at them, or they tripped and everyone, made fun of them for a while. And we carry on shame of stupid little things like that because it is a hardwired evolutionary imperative for us to be afraid of losing the group. Enter social media, but that's an entire different conversation.
Well, that's, I guess, what makes social media so addictive, because you can find someone who thinks very much like you. And that's like the concept on crack. Right.
Well, and we're not going to talk about this today, but I'm going to just tease this for another episode, another time. The exact opposite of this, that fire, that off-color joke, that I don't want him at my campfire circle, that's where cancel culture comes from. That is the basis of like, I can no longer kick him out of the circle and have it be meaningful. I can't just say, I don't want you around because the internet is everywhere. So now we evolutionarily, we've gotten petty and mean and like, no, I don't want him out of this group. I want him gone.
It's because the internet's everywhere. You used to be able to go somewhere else. Right. And there is nowhere else. So people are like, man, cancel culture is so awful. If you don't like it, move on. I agree with that, for the record. I agree with find yourself a different campfire circle. But the reason that cancel culture is a thing is that just like we are terrified of losing the group, we are just as a bad apple in your campfire circle could get you killed. So we are viscerally protective of that tribe, and we will kick out and squash things that we see as a threat to the group for the same inverted reason. So we get all these emotions bouncing around in our heads.
Correct.
And half of them are cavemen, and half of them are there are legitimate fears. And
to the neocortex, the limbic system is the fear center. The neocortex is the part you think with.
Yeah.
Like the neocortex does not know the difference.
Yeah. So what do we do about that?
So there's a lot of different ways to answer that question. But I would say, first off, a lot of people say, I don't know it, but I feel it. Like, I feel it in my gut. And that basically is the limbic system versus the neocortex. Feelings come from the limbic system. Neocortex does words. So if you're things like, say, like, describe how you love your wife, how is it different than loving your child? You like, and it's not you being stupid. There really actually aren't words to describe it because they are completely different sections of the brain.
Yeah.
Now, being able to describe it is not in any way the same thing as being aware of it. You know that you feel differently about your wife than your child, both are love, versus your coworker who you love. Just getting that out of the way. You can use this one word, but like the Greeks had an idea, pragma, pragmatic, that's a type of love, platonic from Plato, types of love, romantic. There's all sorts of different types of love. And we try to give them words, but really, I think anybody who's ever been in love can tell you that the words don't really do the feeling justice.
Oh, and we are stymied by our language as well. Like you're saying, other languages have had better and more words for it.
Right.
I think we cram a lot of things into one word. And
Absolutely.
That makes it a little difficult.
Right. Like, I mean, when you start studying the different Greek derivations of love, you're like, oh, these make total sense. We should use these.
Yeah.
And we do. Like, that's what pragmatic is, or platonic.
But yeah, it needs to be like promoted more.
Exactly. So I'm using love in this example, but fear is the same way. We're like, is this a horror film, a thriller film? Is this a horror or a thriller? Now, for the record, those are very different genres, but just by their names, you wouldn't. Are you afraid like tingles down your neck afraid? Or are you afraid like heart is racing? Are you afraid like mouth is dry? Are you afraid?
Yeah, that's a good point. There's different physical reaction. And we say, we have different physical reactions to fear at different times. It's like, no, those are different emotions. We just call them all fear.
Yeah. And I mean, every fight, flight, or freeze, there are people that have different visceral responses, but just like you are aware of the different types of love you have, most people go, just like, I don't like getting up in public. It gives me anxiety, or I don't like it. It scares me. Or like, okay, cool. Great. Just like you can be aware of the difference of the feelings you have for people, the first step is to be actually neocortex, top level brain, aware of what you're feeling. So You say, okay, I don't want to give this presentation. Is it because I am not comfortable with the material? That's fixable.
Yeah.
Is it because I'm not comfortable with the speech? That's fixable. Is it because I'm uncomfortable with the audience? That may or may not be fixable. Is it because I'm afraid I'm going to get fired? Oh, don't be ridiculous. You're not going to get fired over a bad presentation. Or will you? No, I mean, like, and the thing is that I don't want to answer questions for people. There might be a lot riding on this presentation. That's why I'm afraid. Cool. Good to know. Oh no, I don't do public speaking. I just can't do it. Okay. Why? And this is not to say, get over your fears, do it anyway. No, you don't have to get over your fears, but being stymied by your fears without knowledge of them, that's pretty unacceptable. I'm not going to do this because I'm afraid. I don't know why I'm afraid. I just don't like it. Oh, okay. But just like the power to get anything you want is within you, truly. And I believe that. From $1 billion to a rocket ship to the moon, you have the power to get anything you want. Likewise, the biggest roadblock between you and the thing that you want is 99% of the time you being unwilling to see when you're stopping yourself.
Thank you, Tony Robbins.
Okay, first off, screw that guy. No, Tony, I'm coming for you. No, Tony Robbins. If you'd have said Simon Sinek, I'd have been okay with that.
No, that's why I didn't say that.
Adam Grant, that'd have been fine. Rennell Richards would have been fine with that too. But no, not Tony Robbins. Nope. Cool.
So I guess, don't be afraid to look at your own fears and maybe start unpacking them a little bit.
It comes down to the Zen, just be mindful. Like, it's okay to be afraid, especially if you know why. It's okay to be in love, especially if you understand what that is. But never don't do something without understanding your aversion to it.
Works for me. All right. We will be back next week. Last episode of the year next week.
Merry Christmas.
Getting close to New Year's Eve, but yeah, I guess Christmas is next.
Yeah.
So this is our end of Christmas or end of December countdown.
Yep. Awesome. See you guys next week.
Bye. Thanks for joining us here at Release the Creative. Kirk here would never say it to your face, but he thinks you should like and subscribe to us on YouTube.
And Jeff is far too shy to admit it, but he thinks you should subscribe to us on your favorite podcast reader.
Yeah? Well, you're the one who's always saying that everyone should give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
Why do you have to make everything so difficult?